Welcome to our daily devotional video series, Spirit 23. Jesus says, "Where two or three are gathered in my name, so shall I be there among them." This brief video devotional is a ministry of Trinity United Methodist Church, Seymour, Indiana. My name is Mary Ellen. Today we will be sharing devotionals from Book 1 of The Chosen. At the end of each devotional, we will offer 3 questions that you can reflect on during the day. Please feel free to share your prayer requests in the comments below. We have an amazing team of prayer warriors. Today's devotion is entitled Presence, Part 1. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. And the Pharisees were saying to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath?" Mark 2:23-24. Law 101. It actually was not unlawful to pluck a head of grain on the Sabbath. God commanded that his people rest every 7th day, and Moses specified that no fire be lit in its observance, so the Jews prepared their Sabbath food ahead of time. There was also ceremonial law that prohibited staff, all which fell into 3 main categories: no food prep, no making clothes or leather, and no building things. But no plucking wasn't on any list. Leave it to the religious leaders to require more of the people than God did, at the expense of the law's purpose. God wanted the Jews to rest because they spent their days doing physical labor and the work was never done. For goodness sake, they walked in the desert for 40 years pulling their homes behind them. So the required rest wasn't for his sake, but theirs, just as parents force exhausted little ones to take naps. Back to the story. And Jesus said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he was in need and was hungry? He and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the bread of the presence, which it is not lawful for any but the priest to eat, and also gave it to those who were with him." Mark 2:25-26. History 101. In the Old Testament times, the house of God, known as the tabernacle, was the place where God dwelled in the form of a cloud or pillar of fire. Besides his presence, there were only a few other things in the tent's 2 rooms. First, a golden lampstand made of solid gold and weighing 75 pounds, had 6 arms with many lamps that burned continuously as the only source of light. Next, on the altar of incense, made from acacia wood, covered with gold and standing 3 feet high, a special concoction burned twice a day. Finally, a small, ornate table, also made from acacia wood and covered with gold, sat opposite the lampstand. On it, the priest put 12 loaves of bread. The loaves were baked fresh and replaced each week, acknowledging God's constant presence with the Israelites, hence the name Bread of the Presence. And all that to say, the daily rituals of lighting fires, burning incense, and baking bread were done to honor God's presence, because he was in the room. Stick a pin in that. Despite God's great favor toward David and his resulting victories on the battlefield, the guy could be a piece of work. He often let physical urges dictate his behavior, and this particular incident was no different. David was on King Saul's most wanted list, and he was tired, hungry, and on the run. So he racked up 3 violations. 1, David entered the house of God, a place where only priests were allowed to go. 2, David lied to the priest, telling him that he was on a secret mission from Saul. Nope. And 3, David all but demanded to eat the bread of the presence, food only priests were allowed to eat. Ironically, the rule-obsessed Pharisees held David in the highest possible regard. But this new guy and his disciples, with their heads of grain plucking, how dare they? As would become his habit, Jesus exposed the hypocrisy of their disgust and redirected the conversation to something far more disturbing. To be continued. Prayer focus. Ask God to reveal to you where you value rules over relationship. Questions for the day. With all its pomp and circumstance, do you find talk of the tabernacle interesting or boring, and why? Imagine the room where God's presence dwelled. Imagine approaching the cloud or pillar of fire. How would standing in His presence in that warm and quiet place affect the way you view the requirements of the law? And now imagine walking with Jesus. Imagine the unrestricted access, the casual conversation, and the warmth of His personality. That's all. Just imagine. Thank you for joining us today, and we would like to invite you to church on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. at Trinity United Methodist Church, Seymour, Indiana. Thank you.